Hello, and welcome to Day by Day True Crime Stories, the podcast where we explore a different crime or justice milestone from this day in history. I'm your host, Kona Gallagher, and today is July 5th. On this day in 2016, a 37-year-old black man named Alton Sterling was shot and killed by police officers outside of a convenience store in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. His final moments were captured on a cell phone video that would quickly ricochet across the nation. What followed was an eruption of outrage and grief, not only in Baton Rouge, but in cities and communities across the country. The shooting became yet another symbol of the ongoing crisis around race, policing, and the use of deadly force in America. Today, we're looking back at what happened, who Alton Sterling was, how the fatal encounter unfolded, and the aftermath that still resonates nearly a decade later. Let's get started. Alton Sterling was more than just a name in a headline. He was a father, a son, a brother, and a fixture in his Baton Rouge community. At 37, he was raising 5 children and making ends meet by selling music CDs and DVDs outside of the Triple S Food Mart, a local convenience store where he was well known and had permission to work. People in the neighborhood called him the CD man. He wasn't flashy or loud. He was known for being kind and laid back. The store owner, Abdullah Muflahi, said that Alton was there nearly every day and never caused any trouble. Yes, Sterling did have a criminal history, including some weapons charges. But to the people who saw him daily, he wasn't a menace. He was part of the neighborhood's rhythm. But that all changed one summer night. Just after midnight on July 5th, Baton Rouge police received a call about a man outside of the store allegedly threatening someone with a gun. The man reportedly matched Sterling's description. Officers Blaine Salamani and Howie Lake II, both white and both with several years on the force, arrived at the Triple S Food Mart. What happened next would unfold in a matter of seconds. 2 cell phone videos taken by bystanders captured much of the incident. In the footage, the officers are seen pinning Sterling to the ground. He resists slightly, squirming as they attempt to control him. One officer shouts, "He's got a gun." And then, gunfire. 6 shots ring out at close range. Alton Sterling was hit in the chest and the back. He died at the scene. After the shooting, police pulled a loaded revolver from Sterling's pocket, confirming that, yes, he had been armed. But it was in his pocket. He never brandished it. He never fired. According to the store owner who witnessed the encounter up close, Sterling didn't reach for the weapon or pose any immediate threat. The videos are shaky, but what they do show sparked a wave of disbelief and heartbreak. And it was the kind of heartbreak that, by 2016, had become all too familiar. By morning, the footage had gone viral, and Baton Rouge became the epicenter of a national storm. Protesters filled the streets, and people demanded answers. The site of the shooting transformed into a growing memorial of flowers, handwritten notes, and candles. Sterling's family spoke out almost immediately. In a heartbreaking press conference, his 15-year-old son, Cameron, collapsed in tears as he cried out for his father, sobbing, "I want my daddy." It was a moment that stopped people in their tracks. The protests that followed were emotional and, in many cases, met with heavy police response. Over 200 people were arrested, including activists and journalists. Still, the voices demanding justice didn't quiet. Alton Sterling's name was added to a growing list, alongside Eric Gardner, Tamir Rice, Walter Scott, and others, of black men whose lives were cut short during encounters with law enforcement. The Black Lives Matter movement, already well underway, surged. The Department of Justice opened a civil rights investigation. For nearly a year, federal investigators combed through evidence, reviewed the footage, and interviewed witnesses. But in May 2017, the DOJ announced that it would not pursue charges against the officers. Prosecutors said that they couldn't prove that the officers had willfully used excessive force, a notoriously high legal bar in federal civil rights cases. For many in Baton Rouge and beyond, that decision felt like another gut punch. It was just another example of a system that protected police, even when the consequences were fatal. Then, in March 2018, the Louisiana Attorney General followed suit, announcing that no state charges would be filed. Again, officials cited insufficient evidence to prove criminal wrongdoing beyond a reasonable doubt. However, some accountability did come, just not through the criminal courts. The Baton Rouge Police Department fired Officer Blaine Salamani, citing violations of department policy. Internal review found that he had escalated the situation by shouting obscenities at Sterling and drawing his gun far too early in the encounter. Salamani was also accused of holding his weapon to Sterling's head during the arrest, an act that deeply troubled even his own department. And just as a side note, I was recently speaking with a criminal defense attorney for reasons that we'll get into another day. And he told me that he's seen police officers often get into more trouble for not following department policy than they do for violating someone's civil rights. And that seems to be exactly what happened in Officer Salamoni's case. Officer Howie Lake II was luckier. He ended up getting suspended for just 3 days and then returned to active duty. In 2017, Alton Sterling's family filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the city, the police department, and the 2 officers involved. The legal battle lasted years. In 2021, the city of Baton Rouge agreed to a $4.5 million settlement. There was no admission of guilt, but for the family, it was a measure of closure and a recognition that something had gone horribly wrong. Sterling's death has since become a pivotal case in discussions about police reform. It's cited in legal debates in police academies and protests and policy roundtables as a stark example of why de-escalation is so important for officers to learn. Alton Sterling, the CD man, became a symbol. But behind that symbol was a man who was just trying to make a living, who had a family who loved him deeply, and who didn't expect that night to be his last. Thank you for joining me on today's episode of Day by Day True Crime Stories. If you found Alton's story compelling, please subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. It'll help us grow. And be sure to join me again tomorrow as we explore another significant event in true crime history. Until then, stay safe and remember that behind every headline is a life worth remembering. Day by Day, True Crime Stories is a Little Monster production.
Hey, you can do it!